There's a quiet kind of suffering that never shows up in public. It happens in the mind, when you try to control the uncontrollable. When you replay conversations you can't change. When you try to force people to be who they're not. When you plan every step, only to be crushed by what you never saw coming. It's not the world that breaks you, it's your resistance to it. That slow, silent tension of expecting things to go your way. There's a quiet kind of suffering that never shows up in public. It happens in the mind, when you try to control the uncontrollable. When you replay conversations you can't change. When you try to force people to be who they're not. When you plan every step, only to be crushed by what you never saw coming. It's not the world that breaks you, it's your resistance to it. That slow, silent tension of expecting things to go your way. There's a quiet kind of suffering that never shows up in public. It happens in the mind, when you try to control the uncontrollable. When you replay conversations you can't change. When you try to force people to be who they're not. When you plan every step, only to be crushed by what you never saw coming. It's not the world that breaks you, it's your resistance to it. That slow, silent tension of expecting things to go your way. The Stoic divides life into two categories: what you can control and what you can't. That sounds simple. But most people blur the line every day. They waste their energy trying to change other people's opinions, trying to predict the future, trying to rewrite the past. And slowly they drown in things that were never theirs to hold. You can't control how others treat you. You can't control outcomes. You can't control the weather, the market, the world, or even your own body in the long run. But you can control how you think, what you focus on, what story you tell yourself when things go wrong. That's where your power is. And yet most people abandon that power, chasing shadows outside of their reach. Letting go doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop breaking yourself over what doesn't belong to you. You learn to show up fully, give your best, and release the outcome. Not because it doesn't matter, but because your peace matters more. You no longer carry what isn't yours. You no longer try to manage everything. You become lighter, clearer, stronger. And in that release, you stop destroying yourself, because you stop trying to control what was never yours to begin with. Letting go is a discipline. It's not something you do once. It's something you practice daily. Every time your mind wants to overanalyze a situation, you remind it, this is not mine to control. Every time you feel the urge to force an outcome, you pause, you breathe. You remember that effort is yours, results are not. That gap between doing your part and obsessing over the rest is where your peace lives or dies. The Stoic doesn't seek comfort through control. He finds strength in surrender, not to everything, but to reality. He accepts what is. He adjusts where he can, and he lets go of the rest. That's why he sleeps better, moves smoother, thinks clearer. Because he's not at war with the world, he's in rhythm with it. This isn't giving up. This is growing up. It's emotional maturity at its highest form, the ability to act with full intensity and detach from what's outside your influence. That's not apathy. That's wisdom with edges. If this message hits home, subscribe now and hit the bell, because the strongest thing you'll ever do is stop trying to control everything. Now ask yourself this: how much of your suffering comes from reality, and how much comes from your refusal to accept it? Letting go doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop attaching your identity to things outside your reach. The Stoic understands that true freedom begins the moment you stop needing everything to go your way. When your peace no longer depends on other people's choices. When your confidence is no longer tied to outcomes. When you no longer build your sense of self on what can be taken from you. This isn't about indifference, it's about invulnerability. When you learn to release what isn't yours, you create space for what is. Your focus sharpens. Your emotional range deepens. You stop leaking energy on things you can't change, and start investing it into who you're becoming. That's where growth starts, when you're no longer distracted by the uncontrollable. It's easy to stay busy trying to fix everything. But the Stoic knows that most of that effort is misdirected. The real work is inward. The real challenge is quiet. It's in learning how to let life be what it is without letting it steal your clarity. That's not weakness, that's restraint. And it's rare. Because most people don't want peace. They want control. And that's why they never get either. Letting go is not passive. It's the most active thing you'll ever do. Because it requires awareness, discipline, the willingness to sit with uncertainty and say, "This does not control me." It takes strength to watch a plan fall apart and not fall apart with it. To love someone without needing to possess them. To give your all to something and walk away with your head high when it no longer serves your growth. The Stoic lives by one principle: effort is mine, outcome is not. He trains his mind to stay steady in the storm. He builds habits that anchor him: journaling, reflection, clarity of values. So when life doesn't meet his expectations, he doesn't collapse. He adapts, he refocuses, he moves forward. And because he lets go of what's not his to carry, he can carry more of what truly matters: self-control, purpose, emotional strength. His peace doesn't depend on things working out. It depends on who he becomes when they don't. That's the shift. That's the standard. That's why he stays strong while others break over what they never controlled to begin with. Letting go isn't losing. It's leveling up. Quietly, relentlessly, internally. The moment you let go of what you can't control, you stop being pulled by everything around you and start being moved only by what's within you. That's what the Stoic trains for. Not to be perfect, not to escape pain, but to become so centered that even in the worst conditions, he doesn't lose himself. He doesn't beg for things to be different. He doesn't argue with reality. He adapts. He endures. He leads. This doesn't mean you stop striving. It means you start showing up without attachment. You give your best, then let the world do what it will. You stop building your worth on results and start building it on who you are when things don't go as planned. And that shift, that's the difference between being controlled by life and being composed inside it. The strongest man in the room is not the loudest. It's the one who can walk away from what no longer serves him, with no explanation, no reaction, no regret, because he knows who he is. He's not here to force the world into shape. He's here to shape himself. So here's your question. What would your life look like if you stopped chasing control and started mastering yourself instead?